Now that Congress has passed President Trump's so-called big beautiful bill and the president has signed it, the question is what happens now? The bill passed without a single Democrat vote. Among other things, the bill makes cuts to Medicaid and food stamps, or SNAP, preserves the president's tax cuts, boosts funding for homeland security, and adds several $1 trillion to the national debt over time. Oregon Junior Senator Jeff Merkley is ranking member of the Senate Budget Committee and was a leading opponent of the bill. He joins us now from his offices in Washington, D.C. Senator Merkley, welcome back to Eye on Northwest Politics.
Well, thank you so much. Good to be with you. A lot is happening.
Yes, it is. And let's get right into it. The president's bill allocates billions more in funding for ICE. And now border czar Tom Homan says he's going to double down, triple down, and flood the zone to arrest and deport illegal immigrants in sanctuary cities. And he says he's coming to Portland. What's your response to that?
Well, I invite him to stay in Washington, D.C. What we saw during the first Trump administration was that they sent out teams of individuals that were unmarked, had no identity on their uniforms, not even what force they were part of. They started coming to downtown Portland and started throwing people into unmarked vans. And it was like, whoa, you see this in fascist dictatorships around the world. You don't see this in America. And it poured fuel on the fire, and that's the last thing we need here in Oregon. So I invite him to go elsewhere.
All of the Oregon congressional delegation voted against the bill, with the exception of the lone Republican, Congressman Cliff Bentz. Is the bill really as bad as Democrats made it out to be?
It's pretty bad. I think it deserves its name, the big ugly betrayal of the American people. The impacts in Oregon, as the programs for SNAP reductions, that's nutrition or food stamp reductions, come into effect, it'll affect about 100,000 Oregonians, not all immediately, but over time, over the next couple of years. In Medicaid, which is our Oregon health plan, we're talking 150 to 200,000 Oregonians losing access to health insurance. And the factor is that will greatly reduce the revenue for our clinics and hospitals. And in rural areas, it may well result in the shutdown of a clinic or hospitals. And that means everybody in the community loses access to nearby health care. So it's not just people on the Oregon health plan. So those are tremendous impacts. And those are being basically programs that are cut to fund tax breaks for billionaires. And that's incredibly egregious to savage programs that are fundamental in healthcare, housing, education, in order to fund tax breaks for billionaires. We've summarized this by saying families lose and billionaires win. What we should be doing in a bipartisan way is pursuing a strategy in which families thrive and billionaires pay their fair share.
Concerning the cuts to Medicaid, those happen over time, and the administration says most of those cuts will happen by eliminating fraud and abuse. Obviously, that's not how you see it.
No, there's no evidence that there was anything in this about fraud and abuse. You have essentially a strategy of putting a lot of red tape on people's signups for Medicaid, making them reapply every few months. And if you think of a struggling family or less affluent, 20% in Oregon or in America, and maybe it's a mother with a couple kids and 2 part-time jobs, juggling all of that, having to sign up time and time again. We just know that this strategy is aimed to make it hard. I mean, sometimes Republicans talk about wanting to reduce red tape, but when it comes to blocking families from health care or nutrition programs or other things that will help them have their feet on the ground, they add red tape. And over time, they additionally cap the amount of provider taxes in Oregon, and nationally, that can be used to fund the state's share of paying for Medicaid. So that could result in the shutdown of the legislature would have to struggle with that. And on SNAP, we're talking about a provision that would kick in a couple years from now that would cost the state to pick up 15% of the cost of the program. And for just ballpark, we're talking $500 million over each 2-year budgeting period. Where's that $500 million going to come from? It's got to come out of other programs that help support the fundamentals. So we're going to keep seeing the impacts time and time again as this unfolds. And we've already started to see across the nation some hospitals saying, hey, we're going to start shutting down now or decreasing our programs now in anticipation of what's going to happen 2 years from now, because we know that we're going to have to save our reserves, and we're in big trouble in the future. And it's going to impact us even starting at this moment.
Well, the bill is passed. So what's the strategy of the Democrats now?
Well, it's continue rallying the cry for families thrive and billionaires paying their fair share. And there will be a number of opportunities and bills that come up. There will be a debate over the continuing resolution that will happen at the end of September when the fiscal year ends. There will be the appropriation bills, which are the spending bills that we're just starting hearings on right now for fiscal year 26 that starts October 1st. We'll use every legislative opportunity to say that we have to have a much better path in our obligation to provide opportunity and equity for families across the country.
This past week, the Supreme Court ruled that the president can move ahead with mass job cuts and restructuring in the federal government. What's your concern there?
Well, this is just a nightmare. The Constitution gives the responsibility to design the executive branch to Congress to do by law with a president's signature, if you will, and funding to be done by Congress, by legislation with a president's signature. But what President Trump and his team are trying to do is say, no, we don't need Congress involved. We can change the design of the executive branch without legislation. We can defund programs without legislation. This is what happens in strongman states. And previously, the Supreme Court has absolutely defended the constitutional separation of powers. But what we're seeing now is a deferential court that is saying, you know what? We aren't going to really follow that separation of powers. We're going to keep giving the president more and more authority, regardless of what the Constitution says. To me, they are absolutely failing in their defense of the architecture of our republic.
We've only got about a minute left, but I want to get to a bill that you've introduced. Oregon is in wildfire season now, and you've introduced the Wildfire Resilient Communities Act. So briefly explain what that would do.
Well, what this act does empowers communities to prepare for wildfires. It provides federal support to reduce the risk of catastrophic wildfires. So on the one hand, you have essentially forest thinning, brush reduction, prescribed fires to reduce the risk, and then helping communities prepare for the impacts of smoke and for folks who need refuge when we have these wildfires. And, a lot of folks have asthma. They might end up in the hospital. People need to be able to get to a place with clean air. So kind of tackling it from both directions.
And as we leave you, Senator Merkley, I know you've been asked about this before, but do you plan on running for another term next year?
I know I've been asked so many times this year. I guess the response is the same. Mary and I have been wrestling with that proposition, and we'll soon be making a decision.
Senator Jeff Merkley, thank you for joining Eye on Northwest Politics.
Thank you so much, Ken.
And since our interview, Senator Merkley announced that he will indeed run for re-election. Again, Merkley's term expires next year.